So I almost died a few times. For today's video, I wanted to talk about the things that I learned from almost dying. To start off explaining some backstory, I spent quite a few years in the hospital when I was younger. I spent 3 years in a medical hospital, pretty much without leave. Before then, in my earlier childhood, I was diagnosed with a couple different illnesses that nearly took my life as well, but the very extended stay at the hospital was definitely a dance with death, if I could say that very lightly. And more recently, I had a mysterious, unknown stomach ulcer that burst, opening my stomach, and I was left with an emergency surgery that saved my life 12 hours after the fact that it happened. Actually, more than 12 hours after it happened, so my stomach was open inside of me. It was more the during and the aftermath that really taught me the most about life. It's funny now because I believe that people underestimate just based on the energy that I bring forth. I would say the number one thing that's the most predominant factor that changed pre and post was definitely my lighthearted nature. Not that I have a hard time taking life so seriously, but I do in a sense, because I think that it's all a beautiful, really rich experience and game at the end of the day. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be creative. You're meant to unlock and tap into every intricacy inside of you. And that's the beauty of it. For some people, me included, I needed that big catastrophic moment. I believe so. There might have been different ways to go about it, but to really come to myself. It wasn't about dying itself. It wasn't about the fear of dying. It was more about, oh man, like, I kind of like this human experience. Like, I was just kind of getting started. Like, I feel this peace and this like unconditional love radiating from within through anything and everything, and I'm really thankful that I feel it. But oh man, like, this human experience can cease to be, and starting over, if there is a starting over, which I believe that there is, I won't have unlocked as much knowledge anymore, because you unlock a lot of knowledge through hardship, especially deep hardship. And it's kind of a superpower because you go about life knowing afterwards. The fear was really the observation of the fragility of my human nature and the understanding that this is all just an experience. And I wasn't done with the experience. I was like, man, if this is the way that it is, and this is the way that it needs to end, I have to become okay with that. So I guess I'm okay with that. And not I guess I'm okay with it. I am okay with it because I feel peace and I feel love. However, I still have this human hunger within my heart to experience more. And it was like, I guess you can say that that's like a deeper knowing that you're not done yet. However, that was tested for me as well. Coming out of surgery, there was some complications that happened where I couldn't move my arm, and I draw, I paint, and I draw. I love creating everything in the space I created, the mural, everything, the lamps, in any which way, in all ways I create. And I especially love writing, drawing, painting. Those are the foundations for me. I wasn't able to do that. So there was no escaping through putting out. And that needed to happen, because I think when you're blocked from outputting into the world, creating, talking, taking in social media, it's still an action and a taking. When everything ceases to exist, like when everything stops, having that inner silence is so fundamental to being able to sit with yourself, spend time with yourself, be alone with yourself, heal anything that is still lingering within yourself, and especially to the most extreme cases, come to terms with your mortality. Because especially from someone like me that has quite a lot of ambition and hunger and drive to do things and create things, the idea of my own mortality never really totally sunk in. I had experiences growing up where I was close to death and I was like, oh shit, that was really close. Oh man, that was not cool. But it was almost a joke. I was too young at the time, and I didn't allow that understanding to sink in. Because when you truly understand how easy it is for your human body to perish, you become afraid. It's a very important aspect and step in the process of coming into your wholeness, because that fear is a beautiful challenge. Fears need to be met. You need to meet with your fear. Energy is motion, so the more emotion you give to something, whether it's super subconscious, like whether the fear has been buried, it's subconscious, and you're like just feeding it lightly, you know, it'll keep growing and it'll keep festering and it'll really wreak havoc on your life. Another huge thing that I learned from almost dying was fear is an illusion, and fear can be instantly transmuted into drive, and drive is beautiful because if you use that drive creatively, you're unstoppable. You've unlocked life. That's one of the big things that I learned through this, was that I had nothing to fear anymore. I truly had nothing to fear, because when I sat with the fear that did come up of, oh my God, like, will my body heal from this? Because right now it feels like it's not healing. I don't even understand. I had no control over my physical body, no understanding. They couldn't even tell me why the ulcer happened. They still don't know. And when you're no longer in control of your physical vessel, where do you turn to? You turn to within. Or some people deal with it in a different way. But the biggest lesson that I can transmute is always go within. Don't mask it. Don't start drinking. Don't start partying. Whatever it may be that you choose to do to mask that fear, don't do that. As simple as that. Go within. It's one of the hardest things that you could do. It really is. It's the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life, is facing each fear head on all the time. And it's terrifying. It's never fun in the moment. And this is going to be quite a big ADHD video of just like me mind dumping and like word vomiting a bunch of things that I've understood and learned to try and help people out there, that so that you don't need to go through almost dying to have this realization. Because I think there's so much power when you relinquish and you meet every fear inside of you so that you're completely fearless. Then you're unstoppable. You've unlocked life. And I'm going to say it again and again. You've unlocked life. This is mastery, life mastery. And there's always going to be ebbs and flows to this. It's never going to be a linear process of like, okay, I have the keys. I'm going to put them in the car. We're going to go for a drive. And that's it. And then we're just going to keep driving. It's never going to be that linear. It's going to be like, oh my God, I feel like I have endless potential because I have no fear. So you go into something, you go experience life, you experience something different than you've ever experienced before, and then fears come back up. So it'll never be a linear process, but that's the beauty of it, because that's life. Life is kind of like a big wave of extremes. So there's the positive and the negative. Let's just say the light and the dark, the day, the night, whatever kind of duality that you want to speak of. The two. Life is quite literally surfing like this in an infinite loop between both. And when you relinquish fear, the beauty of this is that you can surf through it seamlessly, because you release all expectations. Because I think that expectations come from fear. They come from a lack mindset, not believing that you can do these things. So you have this like limited expectation, because an expectation is really a limitation in a way. You go into life with zero expectation, but with hunger and ambition and drive, and with a creative insight idea. That's the way that you surf through life. You know, you follow your intuition, your guidance, your pull towards things. I also have to mention that becoming fearless is not just taking away the fears and, oh my God, I have no, it's actually transmuting it into love. Hello, this is Editing Megan, putting a little side note in here, a little practice for you guys to do that I forgot to mention in this video, but that's something I do to really relinquish the Maya, the illusion of fear. Basically, you sit with yourself, and if you are fearful of something, feel into it and be like, okay, am I physically safe right now in this present moment, in my environment? Am I physically safe? If the answer is yes, then proceed to step 2. If the answer is no, fix that, because that is something that is in your control. Leave the situation, go into a physical safety space. Step 2 is breathe into it, feel into it. Okay, I'm safe. I can relax. How do I feel in my body right now? Do I feel safe? Do I feel good? Feel into it. Is there anything in my immediate reality that is scaring me? The answer should be no. The answer should be, I'm actually safe right now in my body and in my environment. Therefore, There is nothing real that is scaring me. Past no longer exists. Future does not exist yet. So there is nothing to fear, because fear once was a survival mechanism. Now in today's world, fear has twisted and turned where it's a cortisol response at almost everything. It's a fear of what used to be and what could be. And it's taken this primal, instinctive mechanism to keep us alive and turned it against us. So it's really important to always remember that if we are physically safe, we are actually safe. If you walk into a situation with unconditional love and peace from this practice, you will avoid this outcome or this past reality that you so fear, because it will cease to exist. So back to the video. Through that, you will have the mental understanding of, oh, wow, this thing that scared me actually had no merit. It had no substance. It was actually just all in my head. This thing wasn't even real, because fears stem from past or future, past experiences or future projection. Both of those things do not exist anymore. They don't exist anymore. The only thing that exists is the now. Constantly focusing on peace and love, you will flow into everything that is meant for you. You will flow into safety, physical safety, surrounding external safety, monetary safety, social safety. All of these things will flow when you change your inner compass, your inner vibration. There's many ways that you can explain this. I believe that there's a lot of spiritual and religious teachings out there, and they all are saying the same thing. Come back to unconditional love and peace. And unconditional love and peace are really one intertwined. They're two separate things, but they're intertwined as well. And I think that I would even go as far as saying the human mind has categorized them as two separate things, but they're the same vibration. Unconditional love is peace, is bliss. So growing up, I was addicted to stress, and there's a multitude of factors as to why that was the case, from the things that I saw around me, from the way that I was raised, from the environments that I chose to go to based on how I chose to show up in the world, and the things that were being reflected. Because here's the thing, another side note, your internal world will be completely reflected around you. Your mindset and your internal world, two of the same thing, because your internal world is really reflected by your mindset, or your mindset is really reflected by your internal world. They're really in conjunction. Your internal world and your mind will be reflected around you. So everything that you think that you believe, take a look at your external world and how you feel about your external world, your work circumstances, your relationships, where you're at in life, like where you're at in your goals, whatever it may be. If you're unhappy with all of them, or even with like the majority of them, or even half of them, that means there's something inside of you that needs to be healed. Whether it be a mindset, whether it be a fear, whether it be a limiting belief. Again, limiting belief and fears are the same thing. It's not about changing your environment. Sometimes that could be like the trigger to help you realize that it really was within. Another lesson that I learned is that everything comes from within. There is not a single thing that does not come from within. Everything comes from within. And of course you can learn things externally that will give you a cue, but why? Let's say you learn something externally, right? You learn an insight. You're like, wow, that makes so much sense. Why do you think that you feel that way? Because you already knew that within you. It resonates as the truth because it was already a truth within you. So you can find information outside of you reflected back to you, but your subconscious already knows this. So it's really tapping into your theta brain state, or just your subconscious and your inner knowing, to be like, holy wow, I have a whole beyond a dictionary inside of me. I have a whole universe inside of me, and so much insight that every answer that I could ever need is within me. Once you go there, my internal world is the thing that's dictating my external world. What is it inside my internal world that I haven't healed that is creating this environment? For example, I was addicted to stress. I was working a job that was incredibly stressful. I was always in this oh, I can't do this because this, and oh, I can't do it. Limiting beliefs are kryptonite. Pluck the weeds of the limiting beliefs in your mind and really emphasize changing those. So wake up every day and be observe firstly, and then change. Firstly, when you observe and you're like, okay, this is what I believe, and this is when it gets triggered. Just watch yourself throughout a day and be like, okay, oh, here's a limiting belief that came up. Oh, here's another limiting belief that came up. Oh, this was really inherently negative. Oh, why did I react like that? And don't indulge in low vibrational or negative frequencies. I can tell you that. Like, the biggest thing is that if you want to have a good PMA, positive mental attitude, you want to have a good inner and mental world, never engage in lower vibrational frequencies or ways of thinking. I was surrounded by a lot of people that when they got angry, they let themselves spiral because it just felt fulfilling. And I've been there because I was around that. I also indulged in that, where something bad happened and I'd be like, ah, blah, 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 and it would like spiral. You're putting energy into motion. You're solidifying a way of being in your brain, fortifying that bond that in your brain, saying that this is a habit that I want to continue. Emotions are the glue. You have to understand that emotions are the glue to any habit that you have in your brain. So if you want to change your perspective on anything, if you want to change anything, you have to no longer react negatively to the things around you. And when you stop reacting to them, they'll cease to exist because they won't even be part of your reality anymore. That's what you got to understand. Like, that's the beauty of it. And I'm really like talking to my younger self in this video because it's so fundamental and foundationally important to not focus. And I don't mean ignore. Don't even entertain that. Be like, oh, what is this trying to teach me? Completely have a different mindset, a positive outlook on it. It's not that hard, and it's not toxic positivity because you're literally just asking it a question. You're reframing from reacting to it emotionally, and you're asking it a question to understand it without bias or without habitual reaction. Curiosity is such an underdog in this world because curiosity has no expectations, and that is so foundational. It's so fundamental. Being curious in life is so... If I had one energy, well, if I had three, okay? Peace, unconditional love, curiosity. That I could live a whole life, and that's how I live my life, basically. Then there's also hunger that comes with the creativity because I'm like, ooh, I feel this drive and this passion. Let's go for it. I really want to drive this in because if you bring curiosity to every single situation in your life, you will win. And flow into it with where your intuition is guiding you, and you will never go wrong in life. I can promise you that, quite literally. And if you do, it's a teacher, right? So it goes back to, what is this trying to teach me? How can I pivot? Literally how you create success and abundance, and you become a magnet to life because you're flowing with it. It's very feminine. It's very divine feminine flow into things, and you don't have to be a female to do this. I think it's a really powerful thing to do this as a man as well. I think you need to. Again, another thing that I learned through almost dying was both men and women have feminine and masculine energies within them, and I like the fact that they're titled feminine and masculine, and I don't at the same time, because it creates a whole connotation in some people. This is really like no gender at all, but I'm just saying, like, for however you identify, if you have both, you are unstoppable. That's another thing that I learned in my whole life. That's been the driving force of my life, and I hope that this isn't too ADHD for most of you guys. Every time that I had a limiting belief, it was the greatest challenge to change it. So if I thought, this is just how I am, this is gonna be a fun ride because this is gonna be quite the challenge. That's how I viewed every limiting belief that I had. I was a very deviant child. I really, really did not like authority because I questioned things too much. I like to understand why, and if it doesn't make sense in my mind, I'm gonna do the complete opposite. That was also stemming from curiosity. I was curious to know what was on the other side of why people were saying don't do this. Again, I'm like reiterating a couple things, but peace is the biggest teacher. And if I can give you guys a practice that I do every single day, that I've done even before the last surgery that I had, but definitely after like a really big life experience, is I take at least once a day, 5 or 10 minutes, to sit with my chakras. And this is just something I like to do because I'm a very visual person. So whether you believe in chakras or not, doesn't matter. Think of them as energy points in your body. You have 7. I also am of the belief that energy stores in the human body. I mean, this has been studied so much, especially through your fascia membrane and in your muscles. An emotion happens, you have cortisol, you have the fight or flight, the stress hormone that gets secreted and it goes in your body, and that can store and cause disease. But what I like to do is when I focus on each chakra, I try and see where there's a blockage in energy in my physical body, because although I'm talking a lot about within, the second layer of life is the human body, the physical body. So step number 2 is the human body. How can you have self-mastery of your physical, tangible 3D self. Now, this will always have an ebb and flow because it's finite. So I'll sit with myself and I'll feel into my root chakra and I'll be like, how do my hips feel? How does my whole pelvic area, pelvic floor feel? How do I feel? Is there a block? How do my legs feel? How do my feet feel? Do I feel grounded? Do I feel mobile? Yoga helps, you know. In the physical realm, movement really helps. Mobility, flexibility, yoga. I say cardio because I love cardio, but weightlifting as well because you really want to keep your muscles good, but you know, that comes with the mental and the physical. Anyways, then I go into the sacral chakra, the solar plexus chakra, the heart chakra, the throat chakra, the third eye chakra, and the crown chakra. So all of those, I focus on them, and there's elements to each that really tie into my physical body, my soul, and like life around me. A couple times throughout the day, I'll just clean them and release whatever could be tight there, or something I'm holding on to, or I'm clenching in any way. That just helps me literally come back to myself, come back to the bliss, the peace, because although my soul feels at peace, I want my human body to feel at peace as well. So subconsciously, I'm just walking in the path of peace and love. When you're in line, you will walk in line because subconsciously you know where to go and you know what to do. On that note, I've word vomited for I think a good 20 to 30 minutes, but those are the biggest things that I learned from almost dying. Life is absolutely beautiful. I no longer fear death because I see it as such a beautiful process. And lastly, one of the hardest things that I had to come to terms with through that was I really was afraid of dying for a while. And like I said, fear is the greatest teacher. Really feeling that fear and going through the grief of because you have to grieve too. The process of transmuting is an entire process. It's not just point A, point B, you got it, it's pretty, it's clean. No, it's messy. It is messy, just like life. Painful, but that's the beauty of it. Oh God, is it ever beautiful. When I came out of the hospital, I had moments where I would just cry uncontrollably, fall down and cry, quite literally, like in my apartment, because I was so afraid. I had no answers, I had no control, no way to understand why. I had to process those emotions, I had to get it out of me, and I had a little bit of PTSD from how intense and traumatic it all was. Not to mention PTSD that was like built up from years ago when I was in the hospital as a little kid, as a young adult, and then as another young adult. A lot of hospital traumas, 444 as I say this. All of it was coming back up because I had never really processed it, and it was all stored in the hips. Another thing that I learned from almost dying is live all of the emotions when it comes to healing. You have to live from bottom up, you know, the lower emotions to the higher emotions. You have to live it. Like, that's the whole reason you're human. That's the whole reason you're here. Like, the fact that you have emotions, feelings, touch, all of that is because that is the reason to exist. That is why you are human. And then we like to tack on like a bunch of other things like purpose and this and that, but at the base of it all, the reason that you exist is because you want to touch things, you want to feel things, you want to experience things. That's the basis. And then after that, you can build off of that once you got that down pat. But if you don't have that down pat and you don't feel the emotions, you're half living. You're not really fully living. And the biggest gift that almost dying has gave me was the ability to truly, fully live. Yeah. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a brain dump, complete brain dump. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope that you're living to your truest and fullest capacity with all of the unconditional love possible, relinquishing those fears and limiting beliefs, and really coming into peace. So thank you. I love you guys and have a beautiful day.